Behind closed doors, and often in secret, in large homes or small apartments, a growing number of seniors are spending their golden years trying to avoid the pain of loss. The loss of a spouse, the loss of good health, or a career from which they recently retired, the loss of old friends, and even the loss of a reason to live. Seniors are turning with greater frequency to drinking to fill these voids and ease the pain in their lives, only to discover they have created another problem: alcoholism.
It was just living from drink to drink and going upstairs and going to bed in between, which was a sad state of affairs.
I come from a family where there's a genetic background for addiction.
But one drink, of course, leads to another, and before you know it, you're having a drink at lunchtime, then it becomes 2 drinks before dinner, 3, and I ended up drinking all during the course of the day as my problem intensified.
At the age of 15, I started to drink to get drunk. I would drink on weekends and know that I'm going to get drunk and kind of look forward to it, or think that made me fit in.
The general statistic is that in all of society, about probably 10% of people who drink become alcoholics. We see people that basically drank maybe abusively all their life, and it's just finally catching up to them at age 60 or 65 or 70. But we also see people who maybe were social drinkers, but maybe they retired, they lost a spouse, they had a major health setback, and they began to use alcohol kind of as a coping mechanism, and the situation got completely out of hand.
In sufficient doses, alcohol will impair judgment, it'll impair coordination, and at higher doses it'll impair consciousness. Older people have a special set of challenges that make it harder for them to deal with those effects of alcohol. Their metabolism is slower, so the alcohol will build up to a higher level in their system after a number of drinks that they may have tolerated perfectly well 20 or 30 years ago. I know you were in the emergency room with some bleeding from your stomach lining, you were throwing up some blood. The emergency room physician mentioned to me that you had told him that you did drink alcohol, and sometimes heavily. Do you feel like you have a problem with alcohol?
I didn't.
The changes in your laboratory results are all consistent with very heavy alcohol consumption. And I'm really worried about you. I'm concerned that if this continues, that before long you're going to have a complication that could be fatal. And the best way to prevent that is to stop drinking.
Well, I really don't want to totally stop.
I have some information here, Ed, on a program that Mainline Health has. It's an excellent program that's at Bryn Mawr Hospital and Paoli Memorial Hospital. It's called the Center for Addictive Diseases. By all the criteria, you are an alcoholic, and this is a serious health problem for you. So the phone number's in here. I'd like you to give them a call, and call me if you have any questions.
The intake interview is obviously crucial because for many of the patients, especially in this age group, this is the first contact they've had with a treatment facility.
My family doctor suggested I come here to see you.
Relax, and nothing's going to happen to you. We're just going to talk a little bit about why you're here, and at the end of the session, see if we can offer you some help.
Well, I'm not sure that alcohol is my problem. The doctor told me it is, and my wife seems to feel it's a problem, but,
How much, Ed, honestly, do you drink a day?
Almost a fifth a day.
Okay. So when you drink that much per day, how does it affect you, physically and mentally?
Well, I feel now I have to drink, but when I drink anymore, I seem to get pains in my stomach. The doctor says it's gastritis.
In looking at Ed, he was a fairly typical patient in that age group. He was nervous, kind of depressed. He was fairly honest, which I think is a good start. We have a group of older adults that are 60 and over, people just like yourself. They're scared about getting help. This is a group of people that have a lot of the same issues. Whatever decision you make, this is going to probably be the hardest thing you've ever had to do, is give up something that, you know, has been a big part of your life for 30 or 40 years. Would you be okay to try that, Ed?
Yes, I would.
The people that we see have spent all their life trying to control it, and they can't. So we use, you know, group therapy, which is very effective for older adults. We have individual therapy. We have a intensive outpatient program where people come like 4 nights a week after work. We have a family therapist. We do refer people to inpatient programs. For example, if Ed just, you know, after a week or so of coming here just can't stop drinking, then we're going to really be a little more forceful in saying, Ed, you really need to maybe go into a rehab for a couple weeks just to get back on your feet. He's scared to death about the prospects of going into an inpatient program. I think he was relieved when we were able to offer him this group, and I think he'll do well once he meets the other people in the group. Let me walk you out and we'll get you set up.
Today is especially important to me because we have a new member. And when I see a new member, it brings back a lot of memories regarding my recovery. And so let's introduce our newest member, Ed, and what he can do is just tell us how he came here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ed. I really don't know whether I have an alcohol problem, but everybody seems to tell me I do. This is my first time in treatment.
Hi, I'm Joanne, and I'm an alcoholic. I could really relate to what you were saying about not knowing if you are alcoholic or how you really felt about that. I know for me, I had a hard time with that, and I knew drinking was causing problems in my life.
Ed, I can really understand, why you're nervous, but it's really important to try to trust the people in the room here and understand that everything's confidential, and you'll get help if you're honest and open. So we're glad you came.
My name is Charlotte, and I'm an alcoholic, and when I was drinking, I thought I was fascinating, perfectly frankly, but I certainly found out in a short space of time that I wasn't. I was just a plain drunk, which was really pretty unattractive. I had an alcoholic mother. Of course, I swore on a stack of Bibles I never was going to do anything like that, or all the rest of the things that we all say. And guess what? I walked the road right straight down that good old path. I had my coming out here and parties and one thing and another, and then I was married. I was a war bride. We were a new young couple in town, and everybody gave parties for us and one thing and another. I became a model, and I really had a very good time. And it was the beginning of, I suppose, hard drinking, but I just thought it was party time. My life just existed because I think I lived from morning to evening, and when would it be cocktail hour and stuff like that, and see that people were there, so I had somebody to drink with, and all the rest of all the things that unfortunately go with the disease of alcoholism. I better get my act together because it was about to ruin the family, but more important, it was ruining me. I used to get terrible stomach aches and all kinds of problems with my stomach, and one thing and another, and then I came down with diverticulitis, and I've forgotten. I was just on the border of having liver problems when I realized, or I was told, that I had to do something about my alcoholism. So I took myself over to Eric Brown at the Paoli Hospital. I was very, very lucky. I had Eric, I had the Paoli Hospital, I had a wonderful therapist who helped me over the next 4 or 5 years get my life untangled with the problems I'd had with my mother. I have not had a drink since December the 27th of 1983, which makes it 17 years. And I wouldn't think of it. Oh, my life is perfect as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be more surprised how happy I am.
Alcohol is definitely an addictive drug. This has been demonstrated in the laboratory, and it's also well known in our society.
I went through 10 years that were not very pleasant, and actually did not realize that alcohol was the problem.
I started drinking heavily as I ended up in business predicaments and situations over which I had no control, such as mortgage lenders calling loans on buildings, and the whole thing ended up in a bankruptcy. And I feel that had a lot to do with my increase in drinking, because
he went from being worth millions of dollars to being worth literally nothing.
Because I fell down around my house 2 or 3 times, split my head open once on the ice, and it was early in the morning, and it was probably a result of the fact that I was stone drunk the night before. My wife would come home and find me passed out in bed, drunk.
Because this was the man that I depended upon. This was the man that was going to be my soulmate for life. And everybody kept telling me, you should leave him if he won't get help. And this was before
I had bottles
exactly
hidden all over the house, and it was just a terrible thing, and it's very, very disgraceful. But
because he was very verbal, never physical, but very verbally abusive. And I said I couldn't do that until I found out what the problem was. Once we both realized that he was an alcoholic and that he needed help, then things started to get better.
I have a very understanding doctor who was who got me going to the Center for Addictive Diseases in Paoli, and I attended meetings out there regularly every Thursday for about 9 months.
As a spouse of an alcoholic, really I feel that you have to be involved in their recovery. You are a crucial part of their recovery. You can't just say they have to do it by themselves, even if you've been hurt. And if you really want this to work, you have to be there for them.
Fortunately, I have a wonderful and supportive family. I have 3 children, and my wife, who is an RN, was right behind me trying to get me help, and until something hit me over the head and I finally listened to her and reached out for that help.
Well, as I tell him every day, I have my old husband back again. He's a wonderful person, and that had gone away when he was drinking.
I have my self-esteem back. I haven't had a drink, I think, in about 2 years, and I'm enjoying life to the fullest.
The most effective way to break through the denial is to show my patient how alcohol is affecting their life.
I make animated films. So, and I make them at home, and I've always worked at home. And my wife worked with me. I came to this country as an immigrant with my wife, immigrant from Czechoslovakia, and we had nothing. We had absolutely nothing but the clothes we were wearing. So I drank around the clock then. I had beer for breakfast. To be having a Manhattan in Manhattan and looking at the skyline and everything, I thought I'm on the top of the world. It was all glamorous. Then it became decadent, and I was shouting, raging, and that to me inside seemed to be glamorous too. I was in this perpetual rage all the time, and my wife was beginning to be worried if I don't have a brain tumor, because it was so exaggerated. I had absolutely no idea that rage was connected with my drinking. And by the end of the day, I had all these unfinished drinks all over the place, and nobody in my household, which was really weird, thought anything strange about it. I've been doing it for so long, but it's okay because I can function. I take care of my family properly. I earn a living. I don't miss out on work. And I delivered on time. I was beginning to have some severe health problems. I was just in denial. Even if a doctor had asked me, "Are you healthy? Do you have any problems?" I would say no. I couldn't get along with anybody, and I had an apartment where I lived. So I decided to quit on my own. And I had been now drinking for almost 40 years. But I didn't know if I could do it. And I unplugged the phone, and I used up whatever I had there. And it got really weird. I felt these insects crawling around me. And, you know, I knew that there's nothing there. So I was beginning to hallucinate, and I knew that I'm going through the DTs. After a while, I didn't know if it's day or night, and I felt terrible, terribly, terribly depressed. And the thoughts that came upon me was, I'm of no use to anybody. Nobody likes me. Why do I have to be around? So I became suicidal in a very, what I would consider, rational way at that point. But I guess I got a little afraid myself to really carry it through. I had been in this severe state for about a week, almost at the end of my rope dangling. And what I did was I called the only doctor I knew, and it just happened that he was a doctor at a rehab 3 days a week, a visiting doctor. So he understood the whole problem, and he was there in a few minutes. And he said that I was just probably minutes away from convulsions. My doctor said that I was lucky to survive. It could have killed me, and it's a terrible idea to quit without detox. It was a terrible mistake, and I was just lucky to survive. So I'm not recommending it to anybody to do it that way. So he recommended AA, and he said, you're not going to like it, but it's free. At least it's free. And it's like group therapy, so give it a try. So I haven't had a drink now in 12 years. So I think I'm recovered. And the thing is, after I quit drinking, the rages did go away. Not that I was never angry, but I could control my anger. I learned how to control it. My divorce with my wife then followed, of course, and it had everything to do with my drinking. I remarried a couple of years later with a woman who I met in recovery, who spoke the same language of recovery. And it was the closest thing to love that I had ever experienced. And then she picked up. After 7 years of sobriety, she started drinking, and she turned into somebody I just did not like. But I'm going to give her and myself another chance, because I understand the sentiments a little bit now, but it's very difficult. I'm extremely happy, much happier than I had ever been in my life. So it's really wonderful to live like this.
The research that we've done on alcoholism over the years suggests that alcoholism is something that can be passed from parent to child.
I came to the Paoli Center for Addictive Diseases, where I was hired as an addictions therapist. My background was in education, and I have been here working with seniors in addictions counseling ever since. I felt comfortable doing this because I myself had been in recovery since 1975. I didn't particularly like the taste of alcohol, and I never thought I would become addicted. I never wanted to lose control. It was involuntary. I believe in the disease concept of addictions. I didn't have control over it. Since I gave it up, I feel unbelievably fit. I work out. I can go out and run a 5-mile run today, and I know I'll do it and succeed. We have clients who come in through falls who don't think they have any problems, and they've fallen and broken a rib or broken a wrist or broken a leg, and they discover that there's a high level of alcohol in their system. Then they come to us, and we can deal with the psychological and emotional issues, and hopefully they won't regress to the liver problems, the bone-breaking problems, the other medical problems. At the senior age, the body doesn't handle alcohol as well. The easiest issues to diagnose are the medical referrals, because we see, well, your liver is severely damaged by alcohol. Then it's very clear you're drinking too much alcohol. Whether you're addicted or not, stop, and then we can go from there. Denial is very difficult to work through, and by listening to others who have had the same denial and being given a chance to share their experience, this helps. A lot of our clients have been very reluctant to come in initially, and their resistance is such that I haven't lost a home, I haven't lost a wife, I'm affluent, I'm not going into anything like this. And we never see them again, even though their prognosis may be horrible from our standpoint. We see their name in the newspapers very recently. They end up in emergency rooms. They end up in police stations. They end up dead. They end up suicide or dying from directly from the disease. This is a life-threatening disease. And even though it is life-threatening, some families, generally the spouse, may not have the strength to push the other person into recovery, and they're willing to enable them and to take care of them the way they have done all their lives, cover for them and enable them to go on into their grave through their addiction. That's called codependency. For me in recovery, my whole life changed in that life is now one of physical fitness, of working out, of socially relating to people with a clear head, of raising a son in sobriety, and able to manage a family life sober.
The biggest factor in terms of what doctors call the prognosis for the alcoholism is how early on in the disease the patient stops drinking. If they stop early on, they are likely to recover from all of the negative effects of the alcohol.
The drug was nothing that great, but it takes a long time for people to realize, to accept that this was not a great life.
Well, this is a very difficult problem to treat, but we do also see a lot of people get better.
I'm living proof that it can be done.
As I tell my children, I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, today I'm going to become an alcoholic. It almost becomes a learned pattern that you have some alcohol, you feel a little better, so then the next time you have a little more alcohol instead of facing what the problem is.
All you have to do is face it and do something about it, and you have so much help out there. I mean, and there's so many people who are willing to help. I never lost a friend. They were wonderful. They stood behind me. They were, I know I could be emotional about that, but my family and my friends, they were marvelous.
I understand that I can't have a single drink. I have to keep thinking about it. I must never forget that. But I have never felt better in my life, and that includes my entire childhood, my entire life.